Principles of Bodybuilding. This is your co-host, Tyhson Banighen, with the Wellness Show. And once again, I'm excited at this series to bring forward the one and only master body designer, Batista Gremaud. I get this spelling and pronunciation right. What is that? Is that it's Swiss, isn't it?
It's very Swiss. In my hometown, everybody is a Gremaud.
Oh, so it's a common name, a Gremaud.
Very common. I mean, literally half the town is Gremaud. Yeah.
And is that from the German background or no?
No, from the French background. I'm from the French part of Switzerland. Yes.
Ah, see, that tells you how little I know. So there you are. And here's her name for those that are learning how to pronounce it like I am. And the topic today is the sacred geometry of bodybuilding. And so welcome back to the show. This is going to be an interesting one. Leonardo da Vinci is one of my favorite, and he's going to be one of the examples we're going to talk about. So let's get it underway.
All right. So first of all, I want to say that this is not going to be a lecture on sacred geometry, because my purpose of taking this topic is actually connecting the dots with actually being in a physical body right now. And so I'm not going to go into numbers and mathematics and all that. This is not the purpose of this, but it's really like connecting the dots. And again, when I came about this knowledge or this idea that there were dots to be connected, is that day I was in the meditation room, and I had spent 30 years in learning all about all these topics, the flower of life and the energy and the vitruvianman and, the religions and all the things that has to do with really being outside of the body, reaching for energies. And I was so fascinated by all that world that moment when I woke up in that room and I saw that my body was falling apart, I prayed and I visualized and I made all the intentions to find the piece of the puzzle missing so that I could connect the dots for myself. I had, at that time, I didn't have the intention to do shows or to write about it, or I knew nothing. There was just that I knew something was missing. And when I found it, then it started to become obvious that this is, my mission in life. And so through this process, I've come to understand actually this topic of sacred geometry and what that might look like for us human beings on the planet, and who are searching for answers to, first of all, better ourselves, to have better quality of life. But when we are light workers, the outcome, what we're really looking for is enlightenment, is reaching higher levels of consciousness. And what I've really realized is that the body is really where it's at.
So that's what you were saying. Is the body is the temple, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So why do we say the body is the temple? Okay, this is something that we hear it every day. Oh, the body is the temple. So what does that exactly mean? So in history, okay, what we have to understand is that, okay, Leonardo da Vinci created the Vitruvian Man in 1487, and he created the Vitruvian Man according to the studies and the teaching of Vitruvius, which was an architect, in a Roman architect. And Vitruvius actually believed that the ancient temples were actually built according to the shapes and the dimensions of the perfect man. Okay, so he was an architect, and he was building all these architectures and these buildings or whatever, but he himself believed that the temples were actually created, built, because according to the proportion of the perfect man, then that would be perfect symmetry, and to recreate temples that would actually stand the weather of time and all this, that it had to match those proportions. So I thought that it was a really interesting a really interesting concept, because like in the Bible we say the body is the temple, and like Jesus says, don't build your house on sand. Of course, in Christianity we think about it in terms of Christianity, then we have to be Christians to the sand in Christianity, they interpret it like, if you're not Christian, then your house is built on sand, right?
Right.
But we have to look at a broader perspective. Like I love to compare to, not to be too esoteric and too out there, just look at the tale of the three little pigs, right? So you have the house that's built on with twigs. You have the house that's and then you have the house that's built with bricks. So it's all the same theory in essence, that when we look back at the history and we realize that actually physically, realistically, practically, that the man, the perfect man, the ideal perfect man, is the foundation of the temples that we actually see and that we go pray in. So the body is really the temple. When Leonardo da Vinci created the Vitruvian Man, he had the vision that the human body was actually at the image of the universe, so that we actually in reality were a microcosm of the whole of the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you put all the pieces together, then you start understanding that something that we talk about very lightly, the body is the temple, or that, is actually profound knowledge. Okay?
Yeah, it's actually the royal road to communicating with the gods, or God itself, or source. Because as man's aligned to the temple's aligned to the universe, and then it's nested all the way up and all the way down with symmetry.
Exactly. So we are made of frequencies and ratios, like mathematical ratios. Really, that's what it is, right? So sacred geometry is a matrix of frequencies and mathematical ratios that creates shape, form, vibrations, colors, and then that trickle down to matter. So,
right.
So when we can begin to understand this concept, and we can understand how to manipulate those frequencies, then we also understand how we can shape our reality, because again, we have the power to manifest. But how does manifestation happen? Which is going to be probably the topic of the next show. Manifestation is really when through our intentions, through our vibrations, through our emotions, we can actually manipulate the frequencies and the energies to bring those frequencies into reality. And
Absolutely.
then we have manifestations. Like the Hebrew, for example, believed that the world was created through the combination of the Hebrew letters, and that created sound vibrations. And if you could master the Hebrew letters and how to combine it, then you could basically control the universe, your body, and everything. So every spirituality kind of sees it or explains it a little bit differently, but it all comes down to the same thing, right? So
yeah, it's in the Bible. In the beginning was the word, so it is a tone, is a frequency, is a vibration, or whether it's yod hey, vav hey, in Hebrew, it's vibrational combinations that allow for creation to manifest. And
exactly.
so what you're saying is very, very powerful. In order to manifest, the symmetry of who we be in our physical body has to match the symmetry of the rest of the universe. Otherwise, there isn't an alignment. And then manifestation becomes difficult. So that, so that's really exciting. So the golden mean and the proportions of the body isn't something that Leonardo arbitrarily came up with. It's sacred geometry, and he's trying to give us a message.
Exactly. So it got, this whole thing got me thinking, and I think a lot and I research a lot. Okay, so that's what I do because I'm intrigued. So I started researching, and what I found, and it really got me, it's like the light bulb went on. It's that, in fact, the ancient Greek, the ancient Egyptians, which pretty much is where we get this information from. Okay, we kind of like a Pythagoras, and like the ancient mystery schools. That's what we learn. So that's kind of where we got the information from in the first place. But what is very interesting and really got the light bulb going is that the ancient Greek and the ancient Egyptians actually practiced bodybuilding. And that was really big news to me, and it really started to connect the dots. They used to use rocks, like weights, they didn't have gyms, they didn't have dumbbells, they didn't have any of that, but they did use rocks. Even the monks, the Tibetan monks, they also practiced bodybuilding in a sense. They were using cauldrons full of heavy things, because they understood that they needed to be stronger physically. They did it not for entertainment and not to win contests. They did it for life, for health, to improve their quality of life, and just to be stronger, right? And so and you can just, and if you don't believe me, just go to a museum and go look at the ancient the Greek sculptures. If you look at Greek sculptures, they are beautiful sculpted bodies, And if you look at the art form of the different ages, it represents kind of the lifestyle that they lived, right? Excuse me. Like if you look at the Renaissance paintings, for example, you would see people that were fatter, right? They had more weight. Well, in the Renaissance, when you were fat, it was a sign that you were wealthy because you had something to eat, right? So if you were skinny, you were poor. So now when in the art form, we see that most, the wealthy in the Renaissance, when you look at the paintings, they were all like pudgy. So when you look at the architecture, when you look at the art of the Greek, for example, there are these beautiful bodies that are like godlike, sculpted bodies. You don't get those bodies unless you were working out with weights. That's how you get sculpted bodies, right?
Right.
So what's interesting is that now we look at the ancient societies for knowledge because they had like the truth, or they had, we learn from them and we want to learn, but we are kind of completely overlooking that aspect of their lifestyle.
Right.
Do you know that even in India, up from the 11th to the 16th century, bodybuilding was actually the favorite pastime?
No, I didn't know that. But I do know that what you're saying, with the more wealthy is that, being overweight or being plump, or however you want to describe it, what they will prefer, because like you said, it's a status symbol. So it's sort of interesting how our cultures have moved away from the perfect sculpted body as the ideal, right?
Absolutely. So from a metaphysical point of view, and from where I come from, where where I want to connect the dots and see what the relationships are and how does that big picture works, then it's very significant. Because, I mean, look at it this way. If we think about like Leonardo da Vinci, and he's there trying to figure out what the ratios are and how to, what the proportion are and what does that look like, and he's trying to get the answers, and his inspiration comes from Vitruvius, who already has discovered that the temples were built from the perfect dimension of the perfect man. And then at those days the pastime was bodybuilding, and we were, as an example, as a visual, that's what they were looking at. They were looking at those sculpted bodies, right? Then there is a relationship, okay? There is a relationship between what they envisioned and what they were seeing. They didn't do those dimensions out of people that were obese, overweight, and, it didn't happen that way, okay?
No.
It didn't happen that way. So, to go back to the history, just to finish that train of thought. So India had a favorite pastime from 11th to 16th century, where they also practiced bodybuilding for health, to be stronger and to improve quality of life. Then for some reason, bodybuilding fell off the map. Okay, from the 16th century to the 19th century, somehow it vanished, it disappeared. In the 19th century, it came back. And people started to lift weight again, but with a total different purpose in mind. At that point, it was for entertainment, game, show, contests, so they didn't have any more health, proportion, physique, and all this good stuff in mind anymore. At that point, it was more like, oh, who can be the strongest, or, shows, and that's where you had the circus, where they had the strongmen or whatever. And that is, from there, that's where we are now, where I feel that we are getting past that show business type of bodybuilding era, where we are starting to come back to thinking about health, aesthetics, symmetry, and as the planet evolves, then I believe as a race, as a human race, that we can realign with some of these values, okay? Because if we have the power to create, as we mentioned earlier, then how do we envision the new earth? How do we envision that we will progress as a human species, right? We have to think about that.
It makes perfect sense. And one of the keys to longevity, of course, is in the proportions of the body as well, right? The stimulations of the blood and the blood flow and the muscles and all that, keeps the body vibrant and healthy, and therefore longevity is something that naturally occurs. Becomes less of a struggle.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about how does that apply to bodybuilding, or let's go into a little bit of practicality of how that could work. So we already know that we can create that symmetry, the frequencies, and the cosmos, the universe is a matrix of frequencies and mathematical ratios. We are built at the image of the universe. In fact, we embody the geometry. We are it, right? So numbers, frequencies, sounds, and all these different elements affect our body and they affect our body in different ways. We know, like, the studies, the research that Emoto did with the water when he played classical music to the water, the water changed shape, and depending on the music, it blossomed, or so it's already been proven. So when we know this, and we realize that it's just not a theory, but it is a fact, then we think about the power that we have with the tool like bodybuilding, which is extremely powerful, because when you lift weight, you have the power to actually change the structure of the body, because weight is a force, right? It's energy, but it's also it's a very dense energy. So when you lift it, you actually have the power to manipulate the human physique. So based on all that we've talked about, then we also have to admit that numbers, ratios between exercises, weight ratios between exercises, exercise sequence, and things like this, then will have a tremendous impact of the results of what we're going to manifest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So when Stephen talks, he always says, okay, it's a prescription, okay? And the difference is if you could compare to an acupuncturist that puts the needles, like, you would hope that the acupuncturist knows the meridian and is going to put the needles in the right meridians for the result that you want to have. Then the fitness industry kind of compares to that. They put needles everywhere. In other words, there's not really any systematic form or system that takes into account number of reps, number of sets, how much weight, if you do this exercise with this weight, then how much weight you should do it for the next. It's kind of like a little bit of do whatever. So this is what the prescription training does. It has a system that takes into consideration all these elements. Now, I want to bring something back from the Vitruvian Man, because everything that happens, it starts with a thought and the seed of a thought, okay? So when Leonardo da Vinci designed the Vitruvian Man, he designed it on paper, but really, logically speaking, do you really think that he had in mind just leaving that thought to just be paper?
No, he had to figure out the golden mean and the proportions, and he had, there was a symmetry and geometry that was already preordained that would give him the perfect body. So it wasn't something that he created out of the blue. It was something that was mathematically proportionally.
Yes.
If you understood the proportions of the golden mean, there was only one way it could be.
Exactly. So,
and if it wasn't that way, it wasn't correct.
Exactly. But the next logical step, though, wouldn't it be to take that image and now manifest it into an actual human being?
I mean, yeah, you're right, because that's what the Greek and Roman sculptures did, right?
Exactly. And this is where the connecting dot is. You see, in the universe, time doesn't exist. There's no time. It's all now. In our reality here, we think about the Vitruvian Man, 1487. Oh, that was hundreds of years ago, and yeah, here we are. But in the universe, there is no time. It's all now. So the idea and the seed planted with the Vitruvian Man, and the idea that I have with Stephen's program, that now this is a tool that's brought to us to actually put into motion that, to bring the body back into its natural proportionate state, then it's just a complete logical next step.
Yeah. So what you're getting at is that the actual exercises in the programs are designed to bring that symmetry into reality. And that's why you say in the first set you ground, for example, so that you're anchored. And the second set you do this and you do that. But you do it in sequences. And like the golden mean, there's proportions for the left side and symmetry to the right side, and 8 reps and then a break and then another 8 reps. It's like a dance, or it's like a choreography.
Exactly. It's like a choreography. As a matter of fact, some of our students sometimes say, oh, it's like dancing with the weights, or it's active meditation. Or so if you compare the program as a symphony, for example, a musical sheet, you could say that the sequence of exercise could be like the melody, right? The musical frame, the melody, and then the form, because form and technique matters, because we want that symmetry. We want to have that symmetrical, balanced physique, so that we can, the posture and all this. So the form and technique, that's the texture of the music. But then you have the number of reps and the number of sets. That's the rhythm, the tempo. It defines that. So you see how everything has a flow to it when everything is in balance. Like one thing that you might have wondered, for example, is how come, for example, in a leg press we would do 3 sets of 8? Oh, that reminds me, before the show you were just telling me that you were doing 40 all straight up. It's not in the music.
Yeah, don't tell Stephen. Yeah, I was dancing to my own music.
No, but you don't want to do that, because when you do many reps like that, 40 reps, you put tremendous pressure on the tendons. You're going to create pain, and you're not building muscles. You're working a totally different muscle fiber. Basically, you're burning yourself out. Okay, so it's in the music. 3 sets of 8. It means that you need to do 1 set of 8 and then put the weight down. And then you need to do another set of 8 and then you put the weight down. And then you need to do another set of 8, and you continue like this, each set individually, and then rest and do it again. But have you wondered why, for example, in the leg press, you would do times 8, but in another exercise like a lat pull down, you would do times 7? Why one time it's 8 and another time it's 7? And why then it goes from 7 to 5? And why in the leg press it goes 8 to 4? You see, there's a balance in everything. And when I started, I wondered, why is that? Why is that? And even the students, they say, why are we doing 7 and not 8 here? Or why are we? And I asked Stephen, and Stephen says, why, it's in the music. It's in the music. It's all he says, it's in the music. And I go, it's in the music? What do you mean? And then, yeah, it's the music. And, now I understand, because now I feel the music. Because it's a very abstract concept, I can tell you. And I hope I make sense. But I'm going to tell you.
It does make sense. I mean, I have to admit, I'm still figuring it out. I mean, one of the things I used to do, and I want to do it again, is the 5 Tibetan rites, which is really for longevity. But their sequences are 21. So I've been figuring out, well, why does Stephen want to have 8 and they're doing 7? So I've had this question that never has been answered. So I'm aware that certain reps mean certain things, but I haven't figured out, well, what is Stephen's music anyway? I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand it's there, but what is it, Stephen, that what you're doing, right?
Exactly. So Stephen is very intuitive, okay?
Yeah.
And before I came along, he never asked himself these questions. For him, it's intuitive. He just puts it together and then it works.
Right.
But I started questioning and studying and going, wow, I want to know why. I want to know why. And I can't really exactly tell you why yet.
I just got it. There's 8 notes to an octave.
You could be right. As a matter of fact, yeah, you could be very right. As a matter of fact, there's 8 notes to an octave, and there's the 5 semi-note, which means 13. Yeah. And that's actually another topic of the 13 chakras, which I want to talk about in the next episode. The 13 chakra system and manifestation and how that all works together. But you could be very right. It has to do with the musical notes of the chromatic scale. I'm certain. I can't exactly pinpoint and tell you exactly. There's no research that's been done. It's just something that Stephen has done intuitively for 50 years. But I can tell you one thing, is I've done this for a while now. And sometimes I look at my program and it calls for 8 reps, or sometimes it calls for 9 reps, or sometimes it calls for 7. But my eyes are not so good, and I don't bring my glasses to the gym. So sometimes I miscalculate. Sometimes I think it's an 8 and it's really a 9. You know what I mean? And so I do a 9, and then it was an 8, and then I go, something doesn't feel right. And then I take my glasses, I look, and I see that I did an 8 versus a 9. And I can tell you that it makes a huge difference when you become really sensitive to the rhythm. Now, it takes time, okay? But what I want to say about this is that, in history, there have been some amazing scientists or whatever that have come up with their own theory. There's Einstein, there's Tesla, there's men in history that have brought forward a knowledge that was new at the time. Okay. And so I really believe that this is a knowledge that is now becoming or being revealed, and it's maybe not so easy to understand yet, but I suspect that in time there will be research on it, and it will become like common knowledge, just like some other things that now we take for granted. Like, now we still refer to Einstein and we go, oh wow, So this is profound knowledge, and I know because I feel it, I live it, and it's something that I impersonate personally because I live it, and I really believe that there is profound truth in these ratio and these calculations and these sets and reps, because they do produce those spectacular bodies for those who continue to follow the tools. It doesn't happen overnight.
Well, I guess I better behave myself and play the 8 notes and take a break. And play another 8 notes and take a break, and stop speed dialing through the music.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and that does make sense. I mean, I do love the feeling, though. I got to tell you, it's addictive to be able to do, for me, to be able to actually do 16 in a row. I mean, for me, whoa, so, but I get what you're saying. There's something about being able to do that. But it is true. If I do, and I can't remember, if I do 8 and stop, then the next 8 is really, really easy, and the next 8 is really, really easy, and the next 8 is really, really easy, right?
Yes.
So I realize that break is absolutely necessary for the rhythm.
Absolutely, and that's how you build strength and how that you mold the body. There will be a time later where we change the pace and we do more reps.
Yeah.
That it will happen because it's a rhythm. This rep scale is not glued and stuck forever. Yeah. This is just a preliminary process to actually start rebuilding the muscle mass and put those synergistic muscles back in place. And and it needs to be easy because you need to get to that weight. No wonder you are having trouble on the heavier weight, because you burn yourself out on those preliminary sets. See, it's all a progression. It's the music, it's the rhythm, and you do it. It's your warm up, and then you get to the sets where you have very few reps and higher weight, and now you're really ready to just really do it. Muscles have memory, and once you do that, then you set. If you burn yourself out, and I know you might find some satisfaction to be able to do 16 reps, but the only thing that you're doing is you're tiring yourself, and you're putting a lot of aggravation on your tendons.
All right, well, I'll stop patting myself on the back and go back to the 8. It was really interesting in the gym this morning because there was 2 grunters and groaners, and it really made me aware for myself that, hey, this is gentle, this is smooth, this is being within the zone, this is pushing the weight, this is being with it. And if I'm feeling I need to be grunting and groaning, I am straining myself. This is not what this is about. So I'm glad those guys were grunting and groaning, because it reminded me not to do that, right? And they were really, really loud. I mean, they wanted the whole gym to know that they were really doing it.
Yeah, there's always some of those in the gym. But interestingly enough, after the last episode, we were talking about breathing, and after that episode, I went to the gym, and you know that there was a couple of guys in the gym that were actually doing the breathing like I was talking about. And I got really, I was like, oh, they know about this. I almost went back and talked to them and say, hey, where did you learn this? Because you don't learn that. And then I figured, well, forget it, right? But you become very aware of your environment and what people are doing. And it becomes the teacher, right?
Yeah, they become your teacher, which is grand, which is great, because the other thing is, after that breathing one, the next time I went to the gym was so much easier. So I need to go think about the breathing every time I go into the gym, because it makes all the difference in the world. There's just way more power in your lift if you're breathing in the right sequence at the right time. It's just incomparable, the results that you get.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the muscles need that oxygen, and then it does a whole thing to your brain too, right?
Yeah.
It's like quieting. You become very centered and peaceful.
So let's go back to that, that esoteric question that you touched on to wrap this up, and that is, how does rebuilding the body impact personal growth and planetary evolution? Because we went right down to the notes, we went down to the rhythm, we went down to the sacred geometry. We talked about why we're building it according to the Roman and Greek proportions that are in the sculptures of the ideal man. And by the way, if you go to India and you go, particularly the temples which has sexuality as the theme, right? Yes. They're all proportioned. All the men and the women are perfectly proportioned, very similar to Greek mythology. And it's interesting because you don't see very many women in Greek or Roman statuary, but you do see it in Indian, and you see that symmetry in the divine feminine and as well as in the masculine. All the gods have that same symmetry, which is similar to the Greek and the Romans. So there was something important in that. There's something to do with your sexuality, something to do with your longevity, something to do with your health and vitality that's in that sacred geometry. There's no doubt about it. And the ancients were trying to tell us that. So when we bring this back to this age right here, right now, where for most people, the gym is, to be Mr. Universe or looking good or fashionable or whatever. How does this then relate to the bigger picture that rebuilding the body impacts personal growth and planetary evolution?
So yes, thank you for asking this, because that's basically the bottom line. We are, as light workers, we're looking at improving our personal life, our quality of life, but also the quality of the life of those we are seeking to help. And then as light worker, there's a lot of talk about ascension and how we're getting to a new level of consciousness. We're getting to a new dimension. And again, with the power that we have to create the realities, because that's what happens. We are on this planet. We are very gifted. It's a gift to be on the planet because we have the power to create.
Absolutely.
Right? So we need to start really thinking about what is it that we want to create? And how does that look like? Like in my eyes, I would rather work towards creating something beautiful where we are healthy, happy, beautiful. This is the reality that I want to create. I want to tell you a quick story to illustrate that point. Last night, I saw a friend of mine who also has a podcast, and also in metaphysical science and in that line of topics. And I saw on Facebook, Facebook is good, and sometimes it's like, oh, get off Facebook. But I saw that he wrote, oh, I joined the gym. And he named the gym he joined. And I'm not going to name any names. I'm just going to illustrate a point. The gym he joined is probably one of the worst that we wouldn't have never recommended that gym. So and he knows us, and we did podcasts together, and he already knows. I thought he understood what I was talking about, and so I messaged him and I said, why didn't you ask me and talk to me? I could have guided you through choosing a better gym, right, where you can actually be successful. And I make a long story short. He said the gist of the conversation, the punchline was, well, I have a lot of stress in my life, and I need to think about other things than become a muscle building machine.
Wow, missing the whole point.
Missing the whole point. And then he says, I have to focus on my career, and I have a lot of stress, so I have to reduce stress. And I was thinking, wow. And this brings me to your question that you ask, how does that help personal growth and personal development and the planetary evolution? A simple analogy, because I like analogy. If you need to go to work and you have to get to point A to point B, I think that you're going to make sure your car has gasoline, your tires have air, your engine is working. You know what I'm saying? You're going to make sure that your car is going to drive you to where you're going, right? So people spend an incredible amount of money on their cars. They have to have the best car, the best this, the best that. And they just don't realize that the vehicle, the temple, the home is actually the body. The body is what is going to take them wherever they want to go. Without it, they're not going to get anywhere. As a matter of fact, I'll bring it to I step it up a notch. You know that, for example, Tesla really loved to hang out with birds because he thought that humans used to have birds, but we lost our wings, right? Okay. but if you read the Secret to the Flower of Life by Drunvalo Melchizedek,
Yeah.
you also learn that we have an energetical field that is, he called the Merkaba, and that is actually our light body that gives us the ability to actually transport and actually get to different dimensions. So in actuality, we do have wings, right?
Yeah, we do have wings. Absolutely. I love that. We do have wings. We have always had.
Exactly, but we forgot how to use them, right? So we're stuck in this dimension. So this is where this comes in. You know, we need to see what is it that we want to manifest, what is it that we really are looking for, and focus on that, and know that there are tools that can help us. If you can become the best you can become, because Stephen always look at people and he says, oh, they're missing half their bodies. They're missing half their bodies. And people look at him like, what do you mean I'm missing half my body? But think about how profound that is. Because we have muscles in our body for a certain purpose. We were born with them. But most people, half their bodies is atrophied.
Yeah, you know, this makes sense because as an energy healer, you know, I'm always looking at people's energy fields. Stephen's looking at their physiology. I'm looking at their energy field, you know, and I've discovered that, you know, 75% of the population, 50% of their energy is going elsewhere. So I'm always saying, how would you like to wake up in the morning, have twice as much energy? Or how would you like to wake up in the morning, have three times more energy, be able almost to be able to walk on water? Well, what Stephen is doing is bringing the physiology, the physicality of that matches the energetic aspect that I'm talking about. So the two are like a perfect marriage. And I understand Stephen saying, oh, half their body's missing, or, you know, or I get what he's saying, because energetically they're losing all of their lifeblood. Their whole energy is going elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And that's a tragedy.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you said. As above, so below. The energetical field of the person is actually a reflection of the physical reality. Exactly. It works together. So when you actually wake up those muscle parts, you reconnect the dots physically in the body, in your synergetic muscles, the connecting links that hold your body up, then it works on your energy field, it works on everything. So it's a must. I say that rebuilding the muscular structure of the body is a must for our personal growth and for planetary evolution, because to me it makes complete sense.
Yeah, your body learns how to sing and dance again. Which brings me to a personal question. I saw a picture of you all dressed up as a flamenco dancer. Have you been dancing lately?
No, I'm retired from dancing. Where did you see that picture?
I saw it somewhere on your Facebook page, and I said, there you are, and it's from the back.
Oh, yes.
And I thought, you know, have you done flamenco recently just for fun, or I'm just curious? No, because you know, I would love to. I'm curious. You know, I'd love for you to do that. You know, if it was ever presented for you, because I have a sense that with what's happening with you and your physicality in your body, it would be such an amazing experience for you to rediscover your body in that way. So anyway, I put that out as a challenge for you.
Everybody says that. Everybody I know and everybody who knows me. I know dancing might be an avenue where I could reach people because everybody loves flamenco and everything, but there's only so many hours in the day.
I want you to do it for yourself. I know, I get that you don't want to be a professional dancer and do all that combat, but go dance for yourself. Go put your flamenco dress on and just go do it.
I don't miss it.
I get the sense that you would bring you so much joy to feel that in your new body, right? That's what I think.
You know something? When in the last couple of years of dancing, because flamenco is beautiful, it has a lot of rhythms, and but it's also very noisy. And I always, in the last couple of years of dancing, I got tired of the jarring,
Yeah.
the jarring and the stomping.
Yeah.
I got tired of it. It started to not energetically. It started not to fit my. It just didn't work too well anymore. But it was my profession, and I didn't really know what else to do, so I kept doing it. But there's something energetically that didn't feel right, and I kept thinking to myself, in the next life, I want to do something that's very quiet. and turns out that this is my next life, right?
Exactly.
And I'm doing something that's very quiet and centering, and so I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure. And if I did do some dancing, it might not be flamenco, because there's something about that energy that.
No, that's not you anymore. What you're telling me is it's not that you don't have that demanding energy of pay attention to me or else, which is flamenco.
No, I don't.
You pay attention to me or else, like da 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 da. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
You're saying, no, look at me. I'm a divine feminine. I'm a graceful. I don't need to be that way anymore in the world. So I get that. So that makes sense to me. So I won't push you anymore. But dance, I know for you would be just in this body that you've created for yourself would be amazing for you to experience.
I might come up with a new form of dancing.
Absolutely. Flamenco plus.
Or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, it's been an interesting show, and thank you very much. I love all this because I get to take it right back into the gym and put it to practice and learn from it. And I hope everybody that does listen to this show now and in the future gets the same satisfaction out of that I do, that it really helps me understand why is it that I'm doing 8 reps and I'm not supposed to be doing 16. And I can just hear Stephen in the background saying, what is that man doing again? But, it's all a learning curve, and we learn why we do what we do and what we shouldn't do. So for that, I'm truly grateful. So what's next? Do you have any premonitions about where we're going next?
Yes, I have a good premonition of what's next. I wanted to, the next logical thing to me would be to talk about manifestation.
Okay.
Manifestation, because that's in line with what we're talking about, and everybody wants to know how to manifest their life, and that's a big thing. Also, I wanted to talk about the 13 chakra system, which is not too much talked about. And a while back, I had a dream about something that has to do with manifestation. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want to give it away, but it's something that I have never heard about manifestation. There's a lot of talk about the law of attraction and, things that we kind of mainstream now. But that thing I dreamed one time, I never heard that anywhere before. And I got intrigued. I started researching it. And somewhere online, somehow, I found something about it that kind of confirmed my dream. And it's to me, I think it's the secret of manifestation that is untold, that nobody knows about, or maybe very few. And there's something that I wanted to talk about and put it in the shows. I think that it would be valuable. Always taking into consideration that everything in my world, everything begins with the body, where we can, hold the energies. So I don't want to get too far out of the box, too out there. But I thought manifestation and the 13 chakra system would be a good topic as a follow-up to what we've talked about today.
Great. That's one of my favorite topics. All right. I'm looking forward to that. Same time, same place, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday, and we'll see you then. Until then, have your best week ever, and don't forget, go to the gym.
Go to the gym. Bye-bye.
This 13-episode series, The Esoteric Principles of Bodybuilding, The Missing Links to Fitness Consciousness, with your host, Batista Gremaud, master builder, bodybuilder, and designer, is co-hosted and produced by Tyhson Banighen and his guides, www.thewellnessshow.ca. And see, the same time, same place, every Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. See you then. Bye for now.